Okay. Good morning. I just finished making coffee. Speaking of, there's actually a pretty cute little video over on my Instagram. If you're not following me, please follow me. It's fun there. I do a lot of shouting. I do a lot of talking about food. I do a lot of up close pictures of my face in the bath. Returning to the topic at hand. Actually, from an Instagram poll, I had asked what folks wanted my next video to be about, and overwhelmingly folks voted that they wanted to see a video about cottagecore. So I'm doing my best cottagecoring here. You're actually with me in my special office room of treasures. I know you can't see them all, and I have had a couple people ask me to do a house tour, but like, I want to keep you hungry. I want to keep you hungry. And I just wanted to have coffee with you this morning. My first ever like job was at Tim Hortons when I was 14. And then I worked at Starbucks when I was 16, and then I have worked off and on as a barista ever since. And my name is Arista. So just like the Arista, this is a barista moment, barista break, barista. Okay, I have a real thing about people calling me Arista. Barista. Bon appetit. Barista break. I don't know, that's terrible. Grab a bowl of coffee for the barista break. I feel like I missed out on a lot of the sort of parasocial relationship things. Like, I grew up without a television. I don't understand fandoms. I don't think we're friends, although realistically I think everyone watching this video is actually a friend of mine. Hey buds. But I know how soothing and great it can be to just like watch a YouTube video. It feels like companionship that doesn't demand anything from you. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about what brought me here. Treaty 1 territory just east of Lake Winnipeg. We're about a 5-minute walk from the lake. We're sort of in a weird cabin country area. So around us there's a number of other developments that are much more developed. I had some hesitations about moving to an area like this. When I was 18, I lived in Jasper for 2 years. For me, there was a real tension in that it was so definitively my home, but for so many people, whether they were tourists or whether they were impermanent staff, it was like a party place or like a brief moment. And so there wasn't necessarily the same level of investment or the same level of care. And I was concerned about moving to an area like this where it's primarily people who have cabins. The beauty of it is that it's, at this point, most of the lots around us, all the lots are half acres, so they're big and they're very treed, and the lots all around us are sold, but no one's building on them. We're next to a road. It's a dirt road and no one ever drives on it. For the first couple months that we lived here, someone driving by was like an event. Every single time I say that I moved to Winnipeg from Jasper, people are like, "Why'd you move to Winnipeg? Wow!" It's a great city. I love Winnipeg. And everyone always says, I mean, it's friendly Manitoba, that's on our license plate. Everyone always says it's such a friendly place. But I had gone from living in this really, really small community where, like, if you were walking along the street and you saw someone, you knew them. And so you said hi and you might chat. But no matter what, even if you weren't super closely acquainted with them, you would smile and wave and nod and say hello. And I remember one of my first weeks in Winnipeg saying hello to everyone, and everyone was like, "Who is this?" It's incredibly complicated to buy land that's been stolen from Indigenous people. It's incredibly complicated to want to build a peaceful relationship with that land and want to build respect for that land. Initially, when we were looking for houses, this was pre-pandemic, we had actually put in an offer on a house that was on 34 acres of land. What do two people need 33 acres of property for? I really like the idea of buying it I really like the idea of buying it and just doing nothing with it. And having it be like kind of a sanctuary. But how complicated is that, right? That then it's a sanctuary that belongs to me. So we live on half an acre. I don't really want to do much with it. I don't think we need to. It's pretty treed. I really want to build some raised beds for gardening. Other than that, I really want to leave it untouched. We actually had our wedding, I mean, we got married in our front yard in August. So we live in this unbelievably beautiful house, and people message me pretty constantly being like, you're living my dream. And genuinely, same. I remember in the summer walking out to the lake, which like I said is about 5 minutes away. There's many paths that go along the lake. And in the summer looking out, and Lake Winnipeg is like an ocean. It's huge. Like most days you can't see the other side of it. I'm from Alberta, where lakes are like the ditch. We're looking at the summer and being like, it can never get any more beautiful than this. And then it is so beautiful in the winter. It is like you're on the surface of the moon. It's indescribable. It looks like we are in the Arctic or on the surface of the moon. It's so bright. It's so vast. There is like this incredible wildness to the prairies, this proximity to nature, to the outside, to the land, to the woods that I've never experienced before, in that it feels like I belong here. I belong to it. And I went through a really intense period of mourning, watching trees and plants wither and die this winter. It was excruciating. It sounds hokey, I know, you're rolling your eyes at me, but I mean it. I mean, this feels like my home and my friends, and it's a fucking pandemic. And so the trees are my friends. And whenever I felt the most lost, I went and just surrounded myself with the most green. And so the winter felt really painful. And I think initially, I remember thinking like, how will I do this every year? How will I bear watching all my friends sort of like wither and die every year? Now I think it's given me a bit more appreciation for seasonality and flux and change and death and life. What you can't see in this room is that I'm essentially surrounded by skeletons and artwork depicting death-related things. Being here, I feel a little bit more acutely called to do work in death and dying, because I've been able to witness so much more proximally, so much more closely, death, and honor it, and know that like I want to cry for the trees, and I want to cry for the plants, and I want to feel it. I want to feel that loss, because it makes me look at the plants in this room, which are just thriving, and just treasure them so intensely. And it makes me look at the lake so barren and so vast and feel so small, and just like revel in that smallness. I'm not a city slicker. I don't think. I found one of my plants had a bunch of bugs on it, and at 10 p.m. at night, I was digging through frozen soil and gently microwaving it so that I could repot the plants that I'd cleaned. And I love getting my hands dirty. I love the smell of dirt. I mean, it's just, so visceral and delicious. I have had several animal encounters. Boom, boom. I don't know, I wanted to go immediately into a Law and Order theme song, which makes no sense, but let's commit to it. Boom, 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 animal encounters. Boom, 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 animal. Genuinely did not believe that there were bears where there weren't mountains. Someone was like, yeah, watch out for bears when we were going camping. I was like, what do you mean? Like, ha ha ha, okay. But there's bears here. They're black bears. They're really small and timid, but like not as timid as I would like. The one sort of like bear experience we had was that we had a giant bin for rainwater because we want to be doing gardening, and we woke up one morning and we could like see that an animal had been trying to get into it. So we ended up putting one of our old like house cameras on it. The next day, sure enough, there was video footage of a bear breaking into this water, which is like, we live next to a lake. Like there's water everywhere, but the bear wanted the fresh Arista water. The spooky thing was that we were literally in the hot tub on our porch. We have a hot tub, I know. Like 5 steps away from where the bear was 10 minutes prior. So they're close. They're close. They're following our movements. Yeah, so we had a bear try and drink our fresh sun tea. Isn't that like a weird pee thing? My favorite story is that one day I woke up and I went to go pee and I lifted up the toilet seat and there was a fucking frog sitting like inside the toilet. The toilet seat had been down. It had been completely sealed. Like there's no way that a frog was in our house and jumped into the toilet. I don't know if it like got in through our well or like what, but there was a frog in the toilet. It was like me chasing this hopping frog around our house because of course I started screaming. The frog jumps out of the toilet. The cats come to see what I'm screaming about. The cats start chasing the frog. Eventually one of my cats catches a frog and I was terrified. And she just like gingerly was carrying him around in her mouth. Just lovingly. He wasn't hurt. Anyways, he went back outside, but there was a frog in our toilet. I see foxes often. There's deer everywhere. There's deer every day, usually in our yard. Oh my god, my stomach. I'm gonna eat one of these. Dark chocolate coconut energy bites. And of the community, everyone's much older than us. Most folks are retired, which is perfect because we are not party people. At one point this summer, I wish this was a joke, but it's not. Someone was having a birthday party for their kid, but what they did was on giant loudspeakers, they played Happy Birthday so loudly on repeat for about 40 minutes. And we could hear it even though they were a 10-minute walk away. We could hear it crystal clear. We could sing along. The whole situation, this whole experience is fundamentally shaped by a pandemic. I think it was about 3 weeks into selling our house that there was then a cool global pandemic on set in North America. And so we had already committed to doing this and making this move, not actually to this place, to another, which that's a whole boring story for another never. In pandemicking, we had this sort of experience of working and living from home, and we were working and living from home in a house that was not half the size, but like half the size. Living in this tiny house, surrounded by other houses, never being able to leave. Moving out here felt like the ultimate freedom. It has a little bit felt like a bubble. It is a level of privilege that it is, as a privileged white person, being able to feel some sense of normalcy in that like this is what my life will be like to a certain extent out here. I can't begin to imagine what it's like to live in a tiny space surrounded by people that you can't connect with for so long. I also am a true homebody. I'm happiest at home. Whenever we leave the house, if we need to go to the city, which initially when we moved here, we were doing about once a week. Now we're doing like once every 3 weeks. Whenever we leave, I just want to come back. If anything, I feel like I have a lot more energy for people when I do choose to connect with them. I often found myself in the city feeling exhausted and overwhelmed because I was constantly surrounded by people, and I was trying to tune into them and be present and failing at it all the time. And I'm sure I still am in many ways now. But part of this move for me, moving from a small city to like rural, I guess, technically, was that I wanted interactions with people in my life and with people to be something I opted in for so that I felt emotionally prepared to choose it. I wanted to choose interaction. And part of that is because I really feel like I'm looking at a career in like counseling, and I know that in order to do that kind of work, I'm gonna need space that doesn't necessitate human interaction. If I'm gonna do this sort of like high intensity human interaction on like peak acute trauma or peak acute need or peak acute joy or whatever it is, I want to be able to pull back and come to a quiet space that's all mine. So I haven't felt isolated. It's felt like a pretty big gift. Although when we moved here, there were 4 months of me just melting the fuck down because it's so quiet, and I had spent so much of my life moving so quickly and in constant motion. You know, I've always had multiple jobs, I've always been in school, I've always had multiple volunteer commitments, I've always had 40,000 things on the go, and then all of a sudden I was in this unbelievably still and quiet vacuum. And I'm still figuring out how to be present with myself. It doesn't hurt too that the things that I would miss in the city are things that I couldn't do right now anyways. You know, I wish we could sit and have coffee. Well, not we, 'cause maybe I don't know you, but I wish, if you are a friend of mine, that we could sit and have coffee in a coffee shop. Mostly I feel intensely and immensely grateful. So, community, land, animals, adjusting, cooking. I have the curse/blessing of 4 million food intolerances, which means that for several years I've been cooking pretty much everything that I've eaten. More often than not, if I'm not making the food, it's gonna make me sick. Whether that's like in my fucking head, which is entirely plausible, or if there's things in it that my stomach reacts to. One thing that people, when I said I was moving to the country, people were like, how will you live without your fancy coffee? Or like, how will you, wow, I'm being a bitch. How will you live without the like niceties that you're used to? And I was like, well, I'm gonna fucking make it. I make beautiful coffee. We get coffee subscriptions, it gets mailed here. We grind it fresh. It's a beautiful ritual thing. So I have my nice coffee. And now I have my nice coffee on a walk next to a lake. And it's beautiful. And I'll probably see a fox, you know? I really love fresh bread. So I learned how to make bread. And I missed things like pizza, and so I learned how to make pizza. When I lived in the city, I'm incapable of making less than like a quadruple batch of something. I haven't made a single batch of something maybe in my life. It's against just fundamentally who I am as a person. And so I always had extra food, and so people would just pick food up. You know, even in the middle of the pandemic, I would leave stuff on our porch and people would just pick food up. I would just constantly have food for folks, and I really missed feeding people. It's such a lovely way to care for yourself. And to me, it also feels like I'm skill building, right? I'm getting better at making bread every time I do it. I'm getting better at making coffee. I'm getting better at, you know, making chocolate coconut bites. I love the freedom of cooking, because I've spent so much of my life looking at food either through like a really unhealthy, disordered lens of like, I could eat that, but I shouldn't. Or I could eat that, but it's gonna make me violently ill. And so food never felt like I got to choose. It was like, well, of these 7 things, one of them is least likely to make me sick, so I guess I'll pick that. So cooking feels like I have some agency. It also feels like a really nice way to connect with people in a bit more of a guarded way. You know, my historical tendency is like, oh my God, you're in crisis? I'm at your house now and I live here and I'm gonna just be there with you, and you maybe don't even want that, but that's what I'm gonna do because I'm a nightmare person. But like the entire world is in crisis right now. Being able to produce food and maybe even this content, hopefully, in a way that is like nourishing. You know, hopefully this is nourishing. Boom, it's barista time. I have tried to grow plants. It's been 63% effective. Lots have died, others are thriving. That kind of extreme is where I like to live. I don't like to live it, but it is my reality. There's a lot of sort of traditional woman things, cannot more liberally use these, that I rejected for a very long time. I rejected, but also just didn't have the time or space to do. You know, I needed to work so much to survive, and I'm extraordinarily privileged that that is not my reality right now. So the space and time to think about, oh, I want to try and grow tomatoes and like see what that's like. And turns out almost all of them will die, and potentially they will all die. We'll find out in about a month. like demands of womanhood, that you, iron the sheets, or you know how to sew, or you're a great cook, or, basically all this unpaid labor. Highly skilled unpaid labor. I think, or I hope, that part of what cottagecore is, and that sort of mentality, is like a re-acknowledgement of those skills. I think that's it. It's jumbly. It's different. There's about 4,000 videos out there about like what you should make your YouTube channel like, how you should stagger your videos and regularity and the same kind of content. I don't want to make the same kind of content. I don't want to make a cooking video every week, not because I don't love cooking and not because I wouldn't be cooking anyways, but because it's not the only thing that I am. So I hope that you enjoyed having coffee with me. I hope that this video got to be a little exhale. I hope that you will subscribe. What a lecherous transition. I hope that you will leave a comment and say, shut up forever. JK, I love you. But no, you're saying that. I'm not saying JK, I love you. You're saying, shut up forever, comma, JK, I love you. Wink, send, comment. This feels like a morning video. Feels like we should have this conversation in the morning, right? Yeah, conversation. It's me talking to myself in a room. Have I just evolved into pure narcissism out here in the woods? Yes. Please subscribe.